New Karen neighbor tried to destroy my water line with an update. Check out this video in podcast form by searching Austin Stories wherever you listen, or check the video description for a link. So I got notice in October that my apartment was raising my rent $200 in a single year come December. I like renting, genuinely. Hey, my water heater is broken. Come home and it's fixed. Never had a problem, but a 20% rise in rent in 1 year? Not doing that. The morning I opened up the rent increase notice, I happened to see a cute manufactured home with the for sale sign on my way to work. I pulled it up on my phone and I called the realtor. This was Monday. She indicated that the sellers didn't want it shown until Wednesday, and then we scheduled a showing. I put in an offer the next day and they accepted 10 minutes later. Yay! I signed and closed 10 days later. It was an incredibly easy transaction and process that made me very happy. Well, on my move-in day in early November, the retiree neighbor on my left comes up to me while I'm helping the movers move my stuff, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Are you going to do anything about these leaves that keep blowing into my yard from yours?" Eventually, it came to a head where I told her, "Hey, I understand that you like to keep your lawn tidy. Can you at least try to understand that I've been working 60 and 70-hour weeks while moving, and I'm doing my very best?" The property management company that runs the park straight up told me that I was in the clear and not in violation of anything. I've had no contact since with her when she realized that I'm not going to capitulate to her. This most recent Friday, when we had frigid temperatures and high winds in the evening, I flushed my toilet and I realized it isn't refilling. I test my taps. No water. It's already too dark, so I go to the store to get water for me and the cats. In the morning, once it's light out, I put on my coveralls and head out into the -3 degree Fahrenheit, -22 windshield degree weather and investigate. The water supply comes out of the ground outside of the trailer skirt and then goes through the skirt to the supply. The previous owners had built a well-insulated box around the water supply, but the access hatch was unlocked and cracked open. Oh, I call my father and I tell him that I need to borrow his heat gun. He offers to drive it over, but the weather's so bad with blowing snow that I told him that even in his truck, he'd get stuck, so I went trekking over there. I'm fuming the whole way. I could have sworn that I latched that door when I was checking my winterizing list. I could have sworn. Eventually, after 15 minutes of using the heat gun, the water started flowing. I get back inside and get under my blankets to get warm after being in the Arctic conditions for nearly 2 hours at that point. I still can't get over it. I know I latched the door. So, on a whim, I propped my laptop in the window and set it up to video record, and I went on with my day. I woke up Sunday morning to temperatures of -7 degrees, -33 wind chill, and I go to fill up the cat's water bowl. No water. What the heck? I put on my coveralls and I head out. The access door was cracked open again. I get the heat gun out again and I get the water going again. So, I check my laptop, and not 2 hours after I started the laptop recording, the neighbor Karen comes waddling across our driveway and walks over to my trailer, leans over by the water, and messes with the door before waddling back to her trailer. I get my coat on and I walk over there with my laptop. When she answers, "Oh, hi Austin, what brings you over today?" All cheery and two-faced. I just open my laptop without saying a word and hit play. She just starts stuttering, trying to come up with some kind of bullcrap, and I just interrupt her and I tell her I'll be forwarding it to the office and walked away. Monday, the office called me and told me that they will be addressing the issue and it would be incredibly helpful if there was a police report. I gladly called the non-emergency line and I scheduled a time for an officer to come out after work. The cops were pulling up just as I was walking home. We came in and I detailed everything and showed them the video. They wanted a copy, so I gave it to them. They asked me to show them the water line, so we head out around there. They took some photos while we were out there, and the whole time we were out, Karen was looking out her kitchen window. They see that she's home as well and offer to trespass her. I head back in and they eventually come knocking, telling me that they spoke to her and trespassed her, gave me a copy of the police report number, and forwarded it to the office. While we were out there, a neighbor couple across the street were out and asked me if everything was okay. I said it was, that I had video proof that Karen had actually opened my water access to freeze my pipes. Their eyes went wide. Their cover over the water line was also removed, broken off, and his water line froze too on Friday, and the repairs were broken again on Saturday. Turns out, Karen has an ongoing beef with them because they have a pride flag that they refuse to take down. So the police went over there to get their statements too. Karen's husband came home an hour ago, came over shortly after to ask me to retract my complaint against them with the office as a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Your freaking wife was intending to destroy my water lines in the middle of a winter storm, which would have cost me thousands of dollars to fix. He pulls out his checkbook. So, what's this going to cost me? Well, I bought the place for $40,000, so let's call it an even $45,000, and I'll straight up tell the office I fabricated the whole thing. He said he was serious. I said, hey, I was too. He says they're on the verge of being evicted and kicked off the lot, and she has problems. Sounds like the neighbors and I should go in on a bunch of security cameras to ensure that happens then. So we'll see. I wasn't going to set up my server, but I'm going to be doing that tonight with a couple of my webcams on some Raspberry Pi computers. I just can't trust this woman. All because of some freaking leaves and a pride flag. The update. Well, it's been interesting. I installed 4 cameras, one on each corner of my trailer and one in my covered porch. I took my other cameras and installed them over at the neighbors across the street who had their water line frozen too, most likely by Karen as well. She watched me install them from her kitchen window and waddled over a little later to look at them and flip me off. She keeps flipping the cameras off. Trash day last week, she cheerfully asked me to help her move her trash cans to the curb when I was walking by with my groceries. I'll admit I snorted and I was petty. I put my groceries down and went to every lot on the street and pulled their trash to the curb except for hers. The nice old lady across the street invited me to Rummikub night. At first, I declined. She said they were going to dish about Karen. I said that I already had my shoes off and that I was in for the night. We drink wine, smoke the funny, and play Rummikub. Okay, I'll get my shoes. These ladies were awesome. New friends acquired. I got all that gossip about Karen and my head was spinning after it all, so some highlights. Karen has 4 adult children. Her 3 daughters haven't spoken to her in more than 12 years. The last daughter to speak to her actually lived on the other side of my place, but they had a falling out so huge that her daughter sold her home and moved across town to get away from her. Her son is the only one in the family speaking to her. Karen used to be a part of another monthly gathering and social of a bunch of retirees in the community, but she was kicked out after she kept going on tirades about the guy who owned my place before and harassing a gay couple that lived on the street. The beef she had with the previous owner of my place started over, of all things, yard waste. Grass clippings to be exact, so at least she's reliable, I suppose. It also explains her deal with the leaves. In response to her bullcrap about him leaving grass clippings on the lawn, he also stopped raking up leaves. So that explains that in a way. In short, she's just a toxic as heck old woman who gets off on starting crap with her neighbors. And her husband paying people off is also apparently a theme as well, as he tried to do with me. The most egregious thing that made my blood boil just hearing it. A few years ago, she got off on this rant about a young guy in the park walking his dog twice every day. She kept going on about, he better not let that dog crap in my grass. Well, one day, the dog decided to relieve itself there, and as the guy was picking up his dog's waste, she maced both of them with pepper spray. Hubby paid the guy off. The lady hosting Rummy Night talks to Karen, and she says that Karen was whining about me putting up cameras and how gauche it makes the neighborhood look. After taking a literal rip, these ladies are freaking awesome, she says, so I say to her, Karen honey, if you're so worried about what's gauche, you probably shouldn't have tried to freeze his pipes in the middle of the worst winter storm that we've had this decade, and then he wouldn't be installing cameras to protect his property. Apparently, Karen's response to that was that I should have taken care of my leaves. So, Karen hates grass clippings, leaves, gays and lesbians, and being a decent human being. She's been taken care of by her husband covering up her bullcrap, and she's just so incredibly toxic that 3 of her own children don't speak to her or let her grandchildren see her. As far as the property managers go, I was assured they are taking this very seriously, but cannot disclose what actions they are taking to me. Fortunately, Karen can't help herself from gossiping or throwing herself under the bus, and after another rip, the Rummy host told me that she received a letter from their lawyers with a correct or quit notice that any more complaints will result in an eviction. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how long she can last before getting evicted, but not as much as I'm looking forward to hosting these awesome old ladies this Friday. I'm going to teach them how to play Settlers of Catan. Well, of course she doesn't like the camera. She's guilty as heck of messing with the people's water line. And it's not OPs, it's everybody's more. This is just a crazy Karen. She's about to get evicted, rightfully so. What do you think? Yes or no? Take you to court? Why, I didn't know you felt that way. This chain of events started almost 20 years ago and involves myself and a notoriously snooty national real estate agency. I once rented a property through an agency from 2004 to 2006. Due to my ex-partner's explosive and violent temper, we had been handed an eviction notice. There was damage to the property that was unfixed at the time that we were evicted. Damage that was in the form of fist and hammer-sized holes in the walls and so on. We obviously did not receive any of the bond deposit back, as the repair cost more than absorbed the amount. There was also an added sum of about $1,700 extra to cover the rest of the cost incurred repairing the damage. This amount was forwarded to a debt collections agency. The collection amount was in both of our names as we had jointly been on the lease agreement. I was not upset at the agency. They were just doing their job by being a good advocate for the owner of the property at this stage. Taking the bond and charging us for the repair was standard and not nasty, vindictive, or overkill in the slightest. My anger came later. Although I must admit I was a bit miffed to be duly held financially responsible for the damage caused by my ex, but due to the nature of the joint lease, not much could be legally done. I was just grateful that we had parted ways not long after. A few years post-eviction, I wanted to get my life more organized in many areas and tie up any loose ends that would impede me moving forward. A clean slate, so to speak. So the debt issue came first. After many phone calls and some paperwork exchange, plus an escalation or two, the debt collection agency finally agreed to split the $1,700 damage bill between the ex and myself. Now I could pay off half and not be held liable for his portion any longer. This had to be done without his consent, as he refused. I'm unsure as to why, possibly hoping that I would pay the whole lot to rebuild my credit rating, or most likely just to be annoying. Once I had paid off my portion of the collector's debt, I thought that I was done with the whole business and the black mark against my name. Not so, unfortunately. It turned out that the state that I lived in had a blacklist that real estate agencies and lessors could add the tenants' names to. It's called the TICA list. All they needed was proof that the tenant had behaved in a bad enough manner regarding renting of a property to warrant being listed. Due to the fact that we had been evicted, the damage, and also owed arrears to a debt agency for repairs, we unfortunately qualified. Being on this list made it almost impossible to rent, especially via a real estate agency. After speaking extensively with the RTA, which is a government agency, I found out that I was definitely eligible to have my name removed from the list, so I started taking action for this to happen. I was able to demonstrate good faith by having paid for half of the damages, and it also went in my favor that my partner was abusive and there was legal evidence of this fact. However, I was told that the only way to have my name removed was by the real estate agency, so I approached them and asked them to do so. They were very helpful initially. If I was able to show them proof that the debt was settled, then they were happy to remove my name. At least 7 years had elapsed by this point, so it was considered punishment enough. At the time after 5 years, your name is usually removed from the TICA list. However, this company apparently kept tabs on who they'd added to the list, and when the person's 5 years expired, well, they just added them again. Dirty tactics indeed, and obviously, I'd been re-added. So I provided relevant documents to the agency and was assured that my name would be removed as soon as they located my file. This apparently had been stored away in archives as much time had passed since I'd rented with them. I was told this would take a week maximum. All good. So I called a week later and was told to wait another week, still in a kind, helpful, and cordial tone. I called again after that time and was told to wait, you guessed it, another week. And this time, I detected a tone of frost in the reply. So I called back more than a week later just to show patience, and now was spoken to in a very haughty manner. I was informed that my request was bothersome, being so because what I asked was not important and finding my file was a waste of their staff time. They would call me when they got around to it. I expressed how important it was personally and then heard the magic words, almost verbatim, "If you want us to do this so badly, we will only be forced to help you if ordered. Perhaps you should take us to court if you can't be patient. Goodbye." String me along? Okay, game on. I had a feeling this was all done to avoid removing my name as they found my file. Also that they were stalling and wanted me to stay blacklisted. But I wasn't backing down without a fight, and so I took their advice. I filed against them to have the matter seen in a small claims court. It cost me $35, which would be reimbursed by the agency if I won. I didn't have anything to lose, and I wanted them to know that not all people will hold indefinitely or continue to be unjustly punished for longer than fair. It was listed to appear in about 4 days from filing. As soon as they received the court date paperwork, I was suddenly bombarded with phone calls. How dare I take the agency to court when they were working their hardest to find my file and help me? Doing my best to sound apologetic for taking their advice, I thanked them for the suggestion, as it seemed there would now be a time frame, at least for the matter to be dealt with. On the day of court, I had 3 sheets of paper as my sole evidence. A statement showing that the repair bill had been paid and there was no finances outstanding. A statement from the RTA that I was eligible to have my name taken off the TICA list. And lastly, a document stating that it was at the behest of the real estate agency to remove my name and that they had no good reason not to. Not 1, but 2 agents for the company showed up to court. When it came before the judge, both parties had to give evidence if relevant. I handed in my 3 pages. Seeing them pass the judge a thick folder of paperwork, including photos of the property damage, was rather amusing, considering they supposedly couldn't find my file when last requested. The judge asked them for a statement. They went on for a few minutes about why I didn't deserve to be removed and justified their stance with the photos and prior rental history with them. All I had to reply was that I had paid for my share of the damage, that the damage was due to my abusive ex, and that I had made restitution as much as I could regarding the matter, with no money owing. The judge then asked why I had brought it to court. I explained that the company was dragging their feet removing my name when it was a simple matter and it wasn't necessarily fair to do so. That I had called them repeatedly and waited while they found my, so hard to locate, paperwork that had somehow miraculously appeared when convenient. That being on the TICA list was harmful to my future chances at renting, and also that my name had been resubmitted after dropping off of the list. The judge queried them why they had added my name again. They stated that it was company policy, and the judge expressed agreement with my stance. I had been punished enough. I had made financial restitution, and now that my file had been located, I was not to be blacklisted anymore. Case decided in my favor. A win. The real estate agency was given 48 hours to submit proof to the court and a copy to myself that I was now off the list. Also, they had to pay for the $35 that I spent taking them to court. The pair of agents walked out in a huff and were on the phone out in the hallway immediately after vacating the courtroom. I floated past them as I was on a justice high. As I got to the lifts, I thanked them for coming and their sound advice in recommending court. Also, that I was grateful for the bottle of wine they would be buying me with the $35 I was to be paid back. The look on their faces was priceless. Isn't this some comeuppance? They take advantage of the person, the company versus little guy, thinking that you're just going to back down and be afraid, but then you step up and take him down. Way to go. What do you do? HOA declares my new house is in the HOA, but no, it's not in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you find out what happens to the house, and I'll see you there.